HOA Karen screamed for police when she saw our boat party, but she didn't know the officers were already scheduled to join us. The lake shimmered with early evening light, dotted with soft reflections of tiki torches strung around the edges of a floating houseboat. Music drifted lazily across the water, classic 80s hits and laughter, blending with the sound of water gently lapping against the dock. Jake adjusted the volume on the speaker system and smiled. He could already see a dozen neighbors gathered on the upper deck, some holding soda cans, a few with binoculars hanging from their necks. It looked like a party, and in many ways it was, but under the surface, this was something more, a routine neighborhood lake patrol wrapped in community spirit. 2 years ago, petty theft and prowlers had made this lake community nervous. Cars broken into, mail stolen, lights broken. Jake, a firefighter on leave recovering from knee surgery, had started the floating patrol idea. With the city's support, a grant, and a lot of volunteer elbow grease, the old houseboat was transformed into a patrol base. Tonight, it was just the usual Thursday rotation, sunset cruise, log any suspicious activity, check dock lights, and scan the perimeter for out-of-place vehicles. They happened to play music and enjoy snacks while doing it. Nothing illegal, nothing out of the ordinary. But someone didn't see it that way. 3 houses down from the dock, a pair of binoculars glinted from a second-floor balcony. Karen. No one needed to ask. Everyone on the block knew her by now. She'd recently been elected to the HOA board and wasted no time turning it into her personal war zone. Unapproved garden flags, holiday lights up past December 31st, a swing set 1 inch over code. Everything triggered a formal complaint. And tonight, it was the boat. She stood with stiff posture, lips pursed in indignation, watching the deck activity like she was manning a lookout tower. Then she picked up her phone and vanished inside. Jake noticed. He nudged Mia, the retired Coast Guard vet who handled boat navigation. $5 says she's calling the police, he whispered. Mia laughed. Bet they're already scheduled to swing by. You know, Officer Reynolds likes my cinnamon cookies. Not 5 minutes later, red and blue lights lit up the shoreline. 2 squad cars pulled up at the marina gate. Karen reappeared on her balcony, phone still in hand, pointing down at the boat like she just caught a gang of pirates storming the beach. Jake stayed calm. He gestured for the team to pause the music and line up the paperwork. Patrol permits, grant approval, HOA notices. Everything was already clipped to the inside of the deck console. This wasn't the first time someone had misunderstood. Still, this time felt different. The officers stepped out of the car and approached with professional caution. Behind them, Karen power walked down the dock in a tight blazer and platform sandals, clutching a manila folder. She called out before she even reached them. This vessel is not authorized to host events on shared property. There are noise violations, and I believe some people on board are trespassing. The officers glanced at each other. Jake took a step forward and raised his hand calmly. Evening, officers. Patrol Captain Jake Thompson. We've got everything here. You're welcome aboard. The lead officer paused. Neighborhood watch? Jake nodded. City certified. Thursdays, 7 p.m. Karen practically exploded. Neighborhood watch? That's ridiculous. This is clearly a party. The second officer took the clipboard from Jake and began flipping through the documents. His expression didn't change, but Karen's did. As he read aloud the city's safety initiative seal and referenced the grant number, her face shifted from smug confidence to stunned confusion. The music was silent now. Everyone on board stood respectfully, waiting for a verdict. The first officer turned to Karen. Ma'am, you're going to want to hear this next part. And just like that, the tension in the air thickened. Karen stood frozen on the dock, her mouth slightly open, her folder now clutched like a life preserver. The officer's voice was steady as he reviewed the patrol documentation, flipping 1 page at a time. Her eyes darted to each person on the boat, neighbors she'd barely spoken to, people she'd filed complaints against just weeks ago, and now they were all staring back. Officer Reynolds handed the clipboard to his partner. This matches everything on file with the city records, he said. Mobile Community Safety Patrol, unit authorized by Lakefield Resolution 12-33. Karen shook her head. Wait, there's no way the HOA approved this. I never saw a vote. This is just some excuse for loud music and drinking. Jake raised his hand politely. The HOA didn't fund it. The city did. We're registered through the Neighborhood Engagement Office. It was announced during the Public Safety Forum back in March. Maybe you missed that meeting. The jab was polite but clear. Karen's face flushed. She tried to rally. I'm on the HOA board. I have every right to enforce rules. This party boat is clearly outside the guidelines of acceptable noise levels, and it's a misuse of common space. Officer Reynolds stepped forward. Ma'am, this isn't a party boat. It's a city-sponsored patrol. The team volunteers their time to monitor for safety concerns, report vandalism, and assist with any emergency dockside issues. We've worked with them for over a year. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. She reached into her folder and pulled out a printed copy of the HOA bylaws. I still believe this is a violation. Section 8.2 clearly states that no amplified sound is permitted near residential docks after 6 p.m. Jake didn't flinch. You're right, and that's why we turned the speakers off when you arrived. We keep the volume low and stop music completely during sweeps. Tonight was our community mixer. Every patrol gets one. Karen wasn't ready to let go. Mixer? Is that in your authorization? Jake turned toward Mia, who handed him another folder. He pulled out a sheet titled Community Engagement Initiative, Supplemental Activities. It had a city stamp and signatures from 3 departments. This outlines all approved activities: daytime patrols, dock checks, nighttime safety sweeps, and yes, mixers. The city asked us to build community trust, and we followed every guideline. The officers nodded, now fully relaxed. The tension on the boat eased as well. People returned to their seats, some whispering to each other, others just watching Karen implode quietly. Then a young boy, maybe 10, stepped forward from the crowd. He wore a safety vest 2 sizes too big and held a small clipboard of his own. His voice was clear. Miss Karen, we even have junior cadets. I'm logging light outages tonight. Karen blinked at him, utterly speechless. Jake looked over at her again, more gently this time. You could have just asked. You're welcome to join any of the community meetings. We're not hiding anything. This isn't about parties. It's about people looking out for each other. Karen stared at him for a beat too long, then turned back toward the shore without a word. Her walk was slower, her steps unsure. The officers remained behind, chatting casually with the volunteers. Someone handed Reynolds a cookie. The tension had dissolved, replaced by a quiet buzz of satisfaction. But just before Karen vanished around a bend in the walkway, she looked back once. Jake saw the look. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't peace. It was calculation. Back on the deck, Mia leaned in. She's not done. Jake sighed. No, she's not. She thinks the HOA can override the city. And that's going to be a problem. The sky had darkened now, stars beginning to appear above the water. The patrol resumed, this time in near silence, scanning the docks, checking light poles, making notes on a clipboard. Jake kept his focus on the shoreline as they passed Karen's house. Her blinds were still wide open. She stood behind them with her phone again. The boat glided forward. And in the silence, Jake knew the real fight hadn't started yet. The next morning felt too calm. Birds chirped, the lake was still, and sunlight poured through Jake's kitchen window. He poured his coffee, already anticipating trouble. By now, everyone on the lake knew about last night's visit. It wasn't every day the police showed up during patrol. His phone buzzed. It was Mia, just got an HOA email. Emergency board meeting. Tonight. Jake didn't even need to ask. Karen. By evening, folding chairs filled the Lakeside Community Center. Karen sat at the front with a fresh binder labeled Concerns. Her smile was tight, rehearsed. Other board members looked confused, a few already annoyed. Jake arrived with his usual calm, carrying his folder and wearing his patrol windbreaker. No one needed introductions tonight. Karen stood and cleared her throat. I'd like to begin by addressing last night's unauthorized use of share dock space for what was clearly a social gathering. This so-called patrol boat is not only disruptive, but potentially a liability risk for our neighborhood. Murmurs swept through the room. Jake stood slowly. With respect, the city authorized the patrol boat through the Neighborhood Engagement and Safety Program. It's registered, funded, and partnered with law enforcement. The patrol isn't just a boat, it's a security tool. Karen's voice sharpened. And yet it plays music. It serves food. It has untrained people monitoring private property. That's not a patrol. It's a floating block party. A woman in the back stood up. She was soft-spoken but firm. My son's car was broken into before this program started. Since then, nothing. I sleep better when I see the boat out there. Others chimed in. A man near the door nodded. They helped me when my dock light shorted last winter. No one else showed up. They even called the electrician for me. Karen's smile strained under pressure. That may be your experience, but it doesn't negate the fact that this was never voted on by this board. There's been no discussion of insurance, liability, or dock usage rights. Jake opened his folder. Actually, the HOA was informed. Twice. Here are the minutes from the safety subcommittee meetings. You were emailed a copy. One of the board members, David, frowned. I remember those. I didn't think it'd turn into an issue. Karen turned red. Whether it was overlooked or not, I propose a vote tonight to suspend boat activity until we can reassess. Gasps rose from the crowd. Someone whispered, "She's serious?" Jake stood silent for a moment. Then from the front row, a small voice cut through. "Please don't shut it down." Everyone turned. It was Maya, a teenager with a nervous smile. She wore a patrol vest, too. My mom works nights. When I joined the junior cadets, I met people who looked out for me. I feel safe walking home now. Jake glanced at Karen. Her expression faltered just for a second. But she pressed forward. That's touching, but sentiment doesn't replace proper procedure. If this HOA has any standards, it will support my motion. The board hesitated. Eyes darted from neighbor to neighbor. Jake stepped forward again. Let's be clear. This isn't just about a boat. It's about who we trust to look out for our community. If we shut this down now, we lose more than a patrol. We lose connection. David nodded slowly. Let's vote. Hands went up. 1, 2, 3. Only Karen stayed down. The motion failed. The patrol stayed. But Karen wasn't done. She stood, calmly closed her binder, and smiled again. I understand. I'll be filing a formal complaint with the city safety board. We'll see what they say. She turned and walked out of the meeting, leaving a hush behind her. Jake watched her go. This wasn't over. Outside, the wind had picked up. The lake, once glassy, now rippled under darkening skies. Storms, it seemed, were coming. The wind hadn't settled by morning. Dark clouds lingered, though the forecast called for sun. Jake paced the deck of the patrol boat, inspecting every railing, every tie-down. Something fell off. Karen had made good on her threat. An email arrived from the city safety board before noon. Jake read it twice, then a third time. It was a formal request to temporarily suspend public-facing patrol activities while a complaint was reviewed. No accusations, no judgment, just a cold administrative pause. Typical government language, detached but heavy. He closed the email and stared across the water. The patrol wasn't just a boat. It was momentum. It brought neighbors together, built trust in a neighborhood that had once felt fractured. Stopping now, even for a few days, risked unraveling all of it. He called a meeting that night. No formal agenda, just neighbors. They gathered on the dock under a fading sunset. Folding chairs, thermoses of coffee, clipboards, and concerned faces. Mia arrived last, carrying a worn binder full of past patrol reports. Jake stood on the bow, voice calm but direct. We've been asked to pause until Karen's complaint is reviewed. That might take a few days. Could be longer. Groans rippled through the crowd. We followed every rule, said Mrs. Lancer, a widow who lived alone. She just doesn't like not being in control. It's not about her liking it, Jake replied. It's about the paper trail. And we've got that. The problem is she's shifting the fight to a level where it's all politics and forms. A teenager named Tyler raised his hand. What do we do in the meantime? If something happens, Jake took a breath. We stay visible. Not on the water, but on land. We walk, we check lights, we check on each other. The boat might be docked, but the spirit isn't. There was silence. Then Mia spoke softly but firmly. She's hoping we quit, that we just drift away. But we don't need music or engines to look out for each other. The group nodded. Some clapped. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. The next 3 days were different. Neighbors walked the docks in pairs with flashlights. Kids in junior patrol vests delivered flyers reminding residents about light outages and suspicious activity. The boat remained still, docked but not forgotten. Karen, of course, was watching. She paced the sidewalk outside her house, clipboard in hand, jotting notes, occasionally taking photos of harmless things. Someone's flower pots, a flag, even a recycling bin that wasn't tucked in just right. She handed out copies of HOA violation notices like menus at a diner. Her war wasn't over. It had just changed fronts. Then came the incident. Friday night. No patrol. No lights on the water. A loud bang echoed across the lake. Then shouting. A group of teenagers had broken into a lakeside shed near the west dock. By the time someone called 911, they'd scattered. No one was hurt, but tools were stolen, a kayak was slashed, and a security light had been broken. The next morning, Karen walked door to door with printed flyers. "This is what happens when rules aren't followed," she told one neighbor. "This is why I filed the complaint." But no one seemed convinced. Later that afternoon, Jake got a call from Officer Reynolds. "I heard about the break-in. Look, off the record, I submitted a letter to the safety board. So did half the department. You guys are part of what keeps that place stable. They'll reverse the suspension. Just hold on." Jake thanked him, but he could already feel the mood shifting. Neighbors were angry now, but not at the teens. They were angry at what had been taken from them, their patrol, their peace of mind. Karen had pushed too far. And just as Jake finished hanging up, Mia pulled up in her truck, waving her phone. She posted something. "You need to see this." Jake took the phone. It was a video. Karen, standing at the end of the dock, speaking directly to the camera. "As a member of the HOA board, I believe it's my duty to report unlawful gatherings and unauthorized patrols. The boat will remain grounded until I say otherwise." Until I say otherwise. That was the moment everything shifted. Jake looked back at the dock, then at the boat. Karen had made one mistake too many. Jake replayed the video twice. Each time, that last line hit harder. Karen wasn't just trying to enforce rules anymore. She was trying to control the entire narrative. Her words weren't about safety. They were about power. And everyone saw it. By morning, the video had made the rounds through the neighborhood group chat, posted and reposted, commented on by people who usually stayed silent. Screenshots were shared with the city, with officers, even with the local news tip line. That afternoon, the call finally came. The city safety board had completed their review. Jake stood on the dock, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes locked on the patrol boat. The city rep's voice was warm, almost apologetic. "The complaint has been dismissed. Your program is in full compliance. You're cleared to resume all activities immediately." Jake didn't smile. He just nodded. "Thank you." Word spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors poured onto the docks within the hour. Mia arrived first with a new patrol banner, still folded from last week's cleanup day. Mr. Lancer helped hang it over the boat's side. Kids in bright orange vests jogged along the shoreline, passing out fresh flyers that read, "We're back." There was no loud announcement. No speeches. Just the engine humming softly as the boat pulled away from the dock, this time with more volunteers than ever on board. They waved as they passed each house, clipboards in hand, lights checked, messages relayed, everything documented. Karen stood on her porch, silent. She didn't film anything this time. She didn't call anyone. She didn't move. Later that evening, Jake noticed her porch light had gone out. He looked down at his list. Karen's house. Outage logged. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Want me to fix it?" Jake shrugged. "She'll never ask. But we can at least report it." The patrol continued under the glow of string lights and warm conversation. No music. No food. Just neighbors watching over neighbors. One of the junior cadets waved from the back as they passed the community dock, where families gathered to cheer them on. Just before midnight, Officer Reynolds stopped by in his cruiser, rolling down the window with a grin. "Got your authorization confirmation. Looks like your boat's more official than mine now." Jake laughed. "Appreciate you having our back." Reynolds tipped his hat. "Funny thing, Karen called dispatch again. Said she wanted to report you for impersonating public service." Jake sighed. "Of course she did. She got transferred," Reynolds added, "to the Public Information Office. They told her if she had further concerns, she'd need to submit them in writing. Again, the boat moved quietly now, stars reflected on the water. Everything was peaceful. Then, from the far side of the dock, surprise. Karen stepped out of her house and walked to the edge of the lake. She didn't yell. She didn't wave. She just stood there, watching the patrol move across the water. Jake saw her silhouette, and then, unexpectedly, she raised a hand. A small wave, not defiant, not bitter, just something like acceptance. Jake nodded, not breaking stride. Later, as the boat docked for the night, volunteers packed up quietly. Mia glanced back at the water one last time. "You think she's done?" Jake paused. "I don't know. But I think she finally realized something." "What?" "That community doesn't mean control. It means showing up, even when no one sees it." He looked out at the houses, porch lights glowing again. She wanted to stop the boat. But she forgot. It's not the boat that keeps people safe. It's the people on it. The patrol program continued. Weeks turned into months. Karen stopped filing reports. She stopped showing up to meetings. One day, someone else took her place on the HOA board. A neighbor who volunteered for dock repairs. A neighbor who smiled when the patrol passed by. The boat remained. Not as a party. Not as a rebellion. As a symbol. A floating promise that even when things get petty, even when people try to divide, someone will still show up when it counts. And the lake never felt safer.